If your daughter and her friend became possessed by a foul-mouthed demonic entity, what would you do? Just when you thought it was safe to go summoning spirits from another plane of existence, it turns out not so much. Now, 2 young lives hang in the balance as their families and community members frantically seek to reverse their descent into depravity. And while our heroes might have the benefit of experience on their side, the demon's got a new trick up its sleeve none of them will ever see coming. I'm going to break down the mistakes made, what you should do, is how to beat the double demon in The Exorcist Believer. Angela is a good egg, something for which her single father, Victor, is eternally grateful. You see, unlike many youths her age, she's not one to blow off chores, ditch class, or break curfew, and the extent of her bad behaviors seems to be limited to embracing the socially tolerated eating disorder known as vegetarianism. Knowing all this, it's no surprise that Victor is quick to sound the alarm at the realization she never came home from studying with her friend Catherine. Worse yet is the fact that her phone is off. It turns out Catherine's parents were apparently fed some BS about the girls studying with yet another friend, which of course they were not. And just when you think things couldn't possibly get any worse, well, you should probably slap yourself because things can always get worse. Case in point, this other friend claims she last saw Catherine and Angela walking out into the woods next to a local tent city. I know. See, this is what happens when you fail to sufficiently traumatize your offspring through a combination of folklore, after-school specials, and evening news broadcasts. Once again, horrible parenting out there causing all the world's problems. Oh, but my child needs to learn their own lessons about making horrible life-altering mistakes. They need to find out for themselves why you don't climb into the tiger cage at the zoo, or into the back of a stranger's van, or crawl into a half-flooded old drainage tunnel out in the middle of a forest full of drink-addicted hobos. That's where they went, by the way, which thankfully their parents are able to figure out after a brief stroll through the woods. Unfortunately, it was only because they found the girl's shoes floating in the slop, but I guess it beats finding a dead body. Obviously, the best thing to do right now would be to get the cops involved as quickly as possible, if nothing else but to ensure that they establish a proper timeline. This, of course, is what the parents do, because they're all smart enough to know that whole myth about having to wait 24 or 48 or 72 hours before reporting a missing person is just that, a myth. Chances are, after 24 hours, they're probably dead. Yes, once again, I'm forced to climb up on my soapbox about this issue because idiots in media have been working overtime throughout the decades making people believe this garbage. Don't listen to anyone who tells you different. Listen to me. Trust me, I'm a YouTuber. You should always file a missing persons report the second you have any reason to believe someone has vanished under suspicious circumstances, which Catherine and Angela most definitely have. Sure, it'd be one thing if they were a pair of rowdy teenagers who routinely ran off in pursuit of ragers or whatever. But in this case, we have 2 level-headed kids with no known problems at home who were last seen entering a pretty sketchy area. The more time that goes by without finding them, the greater the likelihood we'll never find them at all. Alive, that is. Once word of the disappearance gets out, both the police and the community spring into action. Search parties with cadaver dogs scour the woods, candlelight vigils form, and the local news begins airing coverage of the situation to drive up awareness. Meanwhile, the girl's families plaster the surrounding neighborhoods with missing posters, and Victor even makes a trip down to the local soup kitchen to interview some vagrants. It goes about as well as you might expect, and it seems they aren't the only ones in the neighborhood who aren't being helpful, as evidenced by Victor coming home to find his front door hanging open. Here we have yet another example of why you always stay strapped, especially in a constitutional carry state like Georgia. It's not always about the dangers you might face out in the wasteland. Sometimes you gotta worry about what you're coming home to. That being said, I'd never recommend someone clear their own house unless they know their loved ones are in danger. Otherwise, leave that to a public servant or private security if you've got the cash. Naturally, there's probably a part of Victor that thinks this might be Angela having come home on her own, and that's totally understandable given the circumstances. But once he called out to the sound of movement and got no response, I would definitely rethink my decision to carry on without a weapon. Fortunately for our hero, this isn't that kind of home invasion.
Hey, Victor. Oh, good, you're home.
Yes, so I can murder you. Seriously, dude, are you trying to get shot? Coming in uninvited is one thing, but why in the hell would you leave the front door open like you just finished robbing the place? Not only that, but what's with Stuart's ridiculous lack of communication here? Are you telling me he couldn't have texted Victor to let him know he was coming by with a bunch of voodoo people later? Or was scaring the crap out of him part of the ritual? Either way, it's probably not going to work, because the grieving father's clearly not in the mood for company right now, regardless of their helpful intentions. The good news is it won't have to, as the very next day, Angela and Catherine are found huddled together in a barn, 30 miles from where they found the shoes. And it only gets weirder from there. Despite having been missing for 3 days at this point, both girls seem to believe they've only been gone for a couple of hours. Absolutely no recollection of how they got out to the farm. Sounds like some straight up missing 411 if you ask me. Ultimately, a series of rigorous medical examinations reveal no sign of foul play or serious injuries. That is, unless you count the fact that both girls' feet are absolutely destroyed. Like, I get they supposedly walked barefoot through the woods for 3 days straight, but it looks more like they got napalmed or something. Jesus. Whatever the case, it's apparently not enough to keep them overnight, resulting in both girls being sent back home with their families. And while that might be the right call from a physical health point of view, it'd still probably be a good idea to get them in front of psychologists as quickly as possible. Like one of the doctors mentioned back in the hospital, traumatic events can trigger bouts of retrograde amnesia, and even though neither of them wound up getting hurt, that doesn't mean they didn't go through some serious after falling off the face of the earth. I mean, what if somebody abducted them at gunpoint and tortured them in other ways? If so, that's probably something both the families and law enforcement would want to find out, and it would certainly explain how they wound up in the middle of nowhere. And even if they never managed to resurrect the repressed memories of what really went down, some quality time with a head shrinker might help them cope with all the lingering what ifs as they try to move on. Oh, yeah, there's also the fact that both of them began acting extremely strange after coming back home. And yes, I understand they've been through a lot in the last couple days, but between the vacant expressions, bouts of confusion, and unprovoked aggression, my first thought would be that whatever caused them to wander off like that might still be screwing with their heads, especially after seeing something like this.
What'd you say? I heard you say something.
Spoiler alert, no she didn't. Sure, it might be way too soon to conclude that she's been possessed by a demon from hell, but hearing voices is never a good sign. Honestly, that'd probably be enough for me to drag her back to the hospital in case they overlooked some kind of head injury during the examination. It's certainly not impossible, and given how little we know at this point, you really can't be too careful. As for Victor, he decides that all his daughter needs is a good night's sleep and dessert for breakfast to bring her back to normal, but her condition only appears to worsen as time goes on. Not only has Angela wet the bed, she's become unable, or at the very least unwilling, to communicate, to which her father responds by shutting her in the bathroom with the water running and hoping for the best. For real though, dude, laundry can wait. If she's really as messed up as she looks, leaving her alone in a tile room full of skull crushers is definitely not the move. Statistically speaking, it's the most dangerous room in your house, and that's without being loopier than a bowl of Cheerios. Eventually, this realization sinks in, but when he finally comes back to check on her, Angela's nowhere to be found. Yeah, if I had to guess, I'd say it probably has something to do with all that gravy coming out of the faucet. Fortunately, it seems she didn't get far. Guess she doesn't like pancakes. All I can say is that it's a good thing Angela hit the deck all on her own, because there is no way in anyone would believe us if we had to choke her out ourselves. Even still, I'm surprised Victor didn't end up chatting with the cops anyway, as by the time they make it to the hospital, Angela looks about 10 times worse than she did the day before. Then again, the fact that they had to sedate her to stop her from flipping the out probably lent him some credibility. Either way, what's far more alarming are her newly acquired injuries, nails falling off, lacerations all over her stomach. None of this was present when they found her. So what the heck happened, right? Barring some kind of intruder, the only logical explanation is that she did this to herself. And given what just went down, I'd say that's likely the case. All the more reason to get her and her friend in for a psych eval ASAP. Now, come to think of it, I wonder how Catherine's doing right now. Not good. Once again, the girl's parents find themselves sitting helplessly at the hospital, wondering what on earth could have happened to their kids. Although, if you ask Catherine's mom, the explanation lies outside of this world entirely, the way she sees it. Neither of the girls having been baptized left them vulnerable to corruption by evil spirits, which Victor immediately dismisses as utter nonsense. Yeah, yesterday I probably would have agreed with you, man, but in light of recent circumstances, I'd say there's a chance she might be onto something. Not to mention that Angela told him she and Catherine originally went to the forest to conduct a seance and communicate with her late mother. Still, you can't expect someone outside that entire belief system to accept something as off the wall as demonic possession without substantial evidence backing it up. Right now, Victor is far too concerned with the prospects of locking his daughter up in a psych ward to consider the supernatural. However, just as he's about to slam the door on that possibility entirely, his next door neighbor, Nurse Anne, brings him around with a first-hand account of Angela's recent behavior.
Mr. Mary Savior scraped out she was like a rotten pumpkin.
Well, I'm sold. Seriously, she should have whipped out her phone and started recording the second she heard that voice. That'd probably do the trick. However, even more distressing than the manner in which Angela was speaking was what she was saying. According to Anne, she called her sister Mary Xavier, which would have been Anne's novitiate name had she gone through with becoming a nun many years ago. Angela would then go on to mention Anne's terminated pregnancy from around the same time, which, along with her nunification name, no one else in town could possibly have known about. Ultimately, the unsettling report isn't enough to convince Victor outright, but it is enough for him to accept a book on the subject of possession, written by none other than Chris MacNeil herself. Now, if you don't know who that is, well, maybe count yourself lucky, because this movie's about to do her character dirty here in a few minutes. In short, she's the mother of Regan MacNeil, the demon-possessed girl from back in the original Exorcist. Evidently, following her daughter's exorcism, Chris traveled the world, learning everything she possibly could about demonic possession from a variety of different cultures and faiths. As a result, she's become one of the world's foremost experts on the subject, although she herself admits she's not actually an exorcist. Regardless, Victor believes her experience might very well be the key to curing Angela's affliction, and after a brief research montage, he and his friends managed to arrange a meeting with Chris out at her seaside estate. Given the situation, it makes sense that Super Dad would want to explore all his options, and I think his decision to discuss the matter with Chris is certainly a good one. That being said, if he really believes that possession might really be the issue here, he should get the ball rolling with some actual exorcists, as it's not exactly something you can have done on short notice. According to an interview with trained exorcist Father Vincent Lampert, at least in the Catholic tradition, there's no such thing as an emergency exorcism. He claims that the church will only sanction an exorcism once the subject has undergone thorough medical and psychological evaluations to ensure the source of their suffering has no physical or mental cause. Furthermore, there's no way of knowing how long the process could take. It could be anywhere from minutes to months based on various accounts, so we probably shouldn't waste any time. Now, while there's many religious groups that practice exorcism for simplicity's sake, we should probably stick with Catholicism. After all, it was two Catholic priests who successfully carried out Regan's exorcism, albeit with some collateral damage. Luckily, we have Nurse Anne to get things in motion with the local priest while our hero's on his road trip. Speaking of which, eventually Chris stops monologuing long enough for Victor to explain the situation, and after seeing photos depicting wounds similar to the ones her own daughter had, she agrees to help. Only problem is, Chris never actually witnessed missed any part of Regan's exorcism, just the before and after effects. So I'm not exactly sure what Victor's expecting here, especially considering he outright stated he wants to do for his daughter exactly what she did for hers. In that case, he's looking for a standard Catholic exorcism, which, okay, you know what? Let's just not think about. Anyway, Team Angela reconvenes at the mental hospital to give Chris a chance to examine her condition up close. As for Catherine, her parents decided to take care of her at home.
That's not a good idea.
Yeah, gonna have to agree. Catherine's folks were the first ones to even bring up the possibility of possession, and they're treating this like she has the flu. Then again, maybe Victor left out the part about how his teenage daughter heaved him across the room like a garbage bag. Even so, you'd think that they'd want to minimize the contact their non-possessed family members had with the demonic entity. Whatever the case, Victor and company aren't about to let their commiserates find out the hard way just how stupid that was. But by the time they arrive at their house, it seems it's already too late. The pair finds the girl's father, Tony, nearly catatonic, and his wife, Miranda, isn't doing all that much better. Although, at least she had the clarity to round up their children and hunker down somewhere. My only question is how long have they been hiding in the dark like this? You're telling me at no point after Catherine went full demonic did they think to maybe call in backup or something? You gotta believe their church pastor would be willing to investigate reports of an honest-to-God demon living amongst his flock. Oh well, none of that matters now because Chris is here to bore the demonic back to with her special I know everything powers. Except, wait, what was that she said in her interview from back in the day?
Well, for starters, I'm not an exorcist. I leave that to the professionals.
Right, yeah. On second thought, this seems like a terrible idea. I mean, Chris, of all people, should know from experience just how dangerous it is to be alone with someone who's possessed. Fact is, even experienced exorcists work in teams of 2 or more, and even then, it's nowhere near a slam dunk. Besides, there's still about another 35 minutes left of this show, so I can pretty much guarantee this is not going to end well. See, what'd I tell ya? The only good news is that it didn't gouge out her tongue too, so she can still spout more generic, inspirational tripe about how religion is all about people believing in each other. And since people perform exorcisms, and they're all people, they can perform exorcisms too. Yeah, only that didn't go super well for you, now did it? Well, whatever. The point is that it inspires Victor to round up as many holy figures as the film's budget can support, and bring their combined religious might down upon the demon like Haas Cartwright on a bedbug. It's basically the Avengers of faith healing. To that end, he rounds up Nurse Ann and her priest, Father Maddox, Pastor Revens of Tony and Miranda's church, Victor's neighbor Stuart, who happens to be Pentecostal, and Dr. Beehive, who Stuart brought in to bless the house back towards the beginning. Now, you're probably noticing there's a few of the world's other religions missing from this screw party, namely most of them, but it's what we got, so I guess we'll have to make do. That being said, how can we even be sure mixing and matching faiths like this will offer us any benefit? In fact, it could even hold us back, as the rites and rituals of one group might directly interfere with or contradict that of another. See, this may come as a shock to some of you out there, but it turns out belief systems from different parts of the world have trouble getting along sometimes. Even ones from the same part of the world. All this is to say, we might consider running through each religion's exorcism process one at a time. I mean, it's not like the demon gave us a deadline to work against, and even if it did, why would we trust it? At the very least, we could try hitting it in shifts of some kind, or even splitting the girls up and trying a different approach on either one. Which brings me to my next question. Why are we exorcising both of them at the same time? I guess the idea is that they're somehow possessed by the same demon, but how could we possibly know if that's really the case? In fact, that might be exactly what they want us to think. After all, it was hard enough for Father Marin and Father Karras when there was just the one. 2 might very well be impossible, especially if they manage to break free from their restraints. And just to crank up the difficulty even more, right before showtime, we come to find out that the church has forbidden Father Maddox from participating in the exorcism, instead suggesting the girls undergo psychiatric psychiatric treatment first. In reality, the diocese are worried about the potential for backlash should one or both of the girls perish during the ritual. As Father Maddox goes on to explain, exorcisms can be extremely dangerous procedures that have been known to kill on both ends, and he simply can't be part of this knowing the clergy won't have his back should something go horribly wrong. However, that doesn't mean he's entirely unwilling to help.
Hold on tight. You keep your distance from them.
Oh yeah, it's super dangerous and people die from it. But here, knock yourself out. Gee, thanks, Padre. Well, that's just great. Not only was the dude not even a trained exorcist to begin with, he somehow found a way to pass the buck to someone even less qualified than him. Just because Anne almost became a nun decades ago doesn't mean she has any idea what she's doing here. That's like sending someone into a hostage situation because they almost became a meter maid or something. As a matter of fact, has even a single one of the super best friends they've assembled ever even witnessed an exorcism before? Has anyone even asked that question yet? I mean, god damn it, I feel like I'm losing my mind here. Once again, we have no reason to believe this thing has to be done tonight. In that case, I think the best thing we can do right now is keep the girls restrained and hooked up to IV fluids while we compile enough video evidence of their possession to effectively force the Catholic Church to hook us up with the SEAL Team 6 of exorcists. This is the internet age, after all. Side note, thank God neither of the girls were given access to social media after being possessed. TikTok is bad enough without those two monstrosities on there shilling mental illness. Then again, no one would probably notice. At any rate, seems Victor's really tired of having all these people crowding up his living room, so I guess we're doing this. However, before all the screaming starts, I have just a couple more nitpicks to get off my chest. First of all, I realize it's all hands on deck right now, but perhaps it's not such a great idea to have the girls' parents involved. Exorcisms like the one performed on Regan McNeil aren't pretty, and it's entirely possible one of them might interfere if it looks like their child's being harmed in some way. Because of that, it's entirely possible the demon might try to play up the girls' apparent anguish in an attempt to manipulate them. Also, it probably couldn't hurt to take some extra precautions in case one of them really does get hurt, or, you know, worse. It's a little late now, but we should have arranged to have an ambulance waiting on committed standby just in case. Should also probably be thinking about our own safety as well. A little PPE goes a long way, especially with regards to eye protection. Chris? Alright, thinking time is over. Let's get down to business. We kick things off with a scripture reading by Nurse Anne, and while I'm probably the last person that should be giving notes on this kind of thing, from what I found online, readings like this are performed during Catholic exorcisms to force the demon to reveal itself. Yeah, I'd say that's already been taken care of. Instead, we should be focusing on issuing commands and demanding the demon's name, the latter of which being an ultimate sign of submission to God and a sign the process is nearly over. Eventually, this gives way to everyone shouting over one another with little to no effect on target. Sure, there's a lot of spitting and cursing and gnashing of teeth, and whatever the hell this is. But at no point do they seem any closer towards their goal of removing the demon. In fact, it honestly seems like this thing's just screwing with them the whole time. And after exhausting several different rituals from their various belief systems, the demon kicks things up a notch by issuing a command of its own, citing the way in which Victor was forced to choose between his wife and the, at the time, unborn Angela during the earthquake that ultimately claimed the former's life. The demon demands that the exorcist choose between saving Catherine and saving Angela, with the implication that both of them will die if they do nothing. So, yeah, I say we just ignore it. After all, demons are frequently portrayed as deceivers, no matter who you're asking. So why would we take this thing's word for anything? Furthermore, we already know it's a trick from the get-go. As it turns out, Victor chose to save his wife, but fate intervened and spared his daughter instead. The way I see it, the fact they brought this up means whoever we chose to save will be the one that dies. Or maybe it just said that to f with our heads? Who knows? The good news is we won't have to find out, as just when it seems like they have no other choice but to play the demon's game, the gang is blessed by a surprise visit from none other than the runaway priest himself. That's right, Father Maddox is back, and he's called in backup in the form of a loose cannon clergyman who doesn't play by the rules, the legendary Father John. There hasn't been an evil spirit yet this guy couldn't send back to on a bullet. Oh, and about that whole vow of chastity thing. Well, let's say God's willing to make exceptions for bad motherfuckers. That's right, demons. Your game is through. You'd better pray to all that this unholy Father John doesn't find you, because when he does, you'll be puking pea soup out a new hole in your head. Rated E for extreme violence. Oh, hang on. Sorry, I got my scripts mixed up. Martin. The preceding segment was actually about the latest video on my Triple Tap channel, The Exorcist Parabellum. That's right, if you're tired of boring exorcism movies without head explosions and guns, then what the are you waiting for? Links in the description. Where was I? Oh, yeah. The lame regular priest, who also has never performed an exorcism, is back to shout at the girls and touch them on the forehead. Let's see how that works out. Yeah, probably should have taken his own advice about not getting too close. Seemingly out of options, Victor breaks down and tosses his late wife's scarf around Angela's neck, imploring her to resist the demon, not on behalf of God, but on behalf of his love for her. And wouldn't you know it, this actually seems to have some kind of effect. The girl's vital signs, once perfectly synchronized, now appear to be different, and a piece of Angela's personality begins to emerge. Hey, you know what? Awesome. What I want to know is, why in the aren't Tony and Miranda taking the exact same approach with their daughter right now? Like, I get you have the other two kids, but still, you might need a babysitter at some point. I don't know. Ultimately, this failure to act on their part causes the still possessed Catherine to call out for help, to which Tony responds with a knee-jerk reaction of proclaiming his choice to save her over Angela, with some rather interesting results. Guess I was wrong about that whole double cross thing. Except not really, because it turns out that this was just one final fake out meant to subvert our expectations. And boy, were my expectations subverted. You see, while it might look like Angela's dead as hell, she's actually totally fine. Whereas Catherine's only seconds away from ensuring her father never wins another argument for the rest of his life. Man, who could have seen that coming? Clearly no one in this room, as only now did they think to get an ambulance on the way. Meanwhile, Nurse Ann demonstrates a frightening lack of medical knowledge by shocking a flatline with a defibrillator, instead of committing to CPR and administering shots of adrenaline. Seriously, with everyone here, you could have easily kept up a rotation long enough for the paramedics to arrive and pronounce her dead at the scene. In fact, delaying CPR to deliver shocks to a flatlined patient only worsens their already dismal chances of survival. Guess she probably should have been a nun after all. And with that, Angela is finally free from her possession and can go back to constantly reminding her father of his long dead wife. In the end, our heroes could only save one of the girls, and in doing so, lost one of the aspiring exorcists and saw another rendered permanently blind. However, had they taken a big step back once the girl's possession was confirmed and focused on getting help from actual exorcists who have performed actual exorcisms, I think that there's a good chance they could have avoided the collateral damage. That being said, once they became committed to handling it themselves, separating the girls and conducting two different exorcisms likely would have prevented Tony from blowing the whole thing, especially once they figured out all that love conquers all bullshit. I think the Exorcist believer was beaten. Moral of the story, leave demon hunting to the professionals like Father John.